Part 15. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan San Buletinji. Chapter 146. Angzi was lying on the bed, and Abby beside him was already asleep deeply. Angzi didn't sleep because he was still waiting for the result of the system upgrade. Apart from being irritable, drowsy, and bored, Angzi picked up the phone and sat up and checked the news. Pointing to Weibo, Angzi thought for a while. It seems that it hasn't been posted for a long time. After thinking about it a little bit, Angzi decided to post a post for all three social apps. The Spurs advance toward the championship. Twitter, Facebook, and Weibo, the three major social software applications, were sent out, and many replies were quickly received. The reply from the United States is not of interest to Angzi. He looked at the reply on Weibo. It's late at night in America, right? Angzi still doesn't sleep. Haha, I should be so excited that I can't fall asleep. I have reached the Western Conference Finals. As the main force, the Chinese players have reached the Western Conference Finals for the first time, but Angzi is not allowed to be excited. Congratulations to Angzi, your performance in this round of the series is outstanding. Angzi hasn't paid attention to the domestic situation for a long time. When this Weibo was posted, it was all in support of Angzi, and the number of comments increased to tens of thousands in a few minutes. Angzi took a strange look at the number of fans. I haven't posted on Weibo for so many days, and the number of fans has exceeded 10 million. Tens of millions of fans, this is a big V number in China. At most only a few fans in the entertainment circle can compare with Angzi. So Angzi clicked and opened a private message. Sure enough, many advertisers contacted Angzi, hoping to use Angzi's Weibo to post some advertisements, but because Angzi hasn't been online for a long time, I haven't seen it. Now I see it, and Angzi is not ready to respond. He opened Weibo. Although his original intention was to make money, his food is not so ugly. Weibo is just a platform for interacting with fans. It shouldn't be advertising. Quickly browsing tens of thousands of private messages, Angzi suddenly discovered that there seemed to be several domestic entertainment industry big names to leave for himself, and Angzi came to be interested. But at this time, there was an electronic sound in the brain. Angzi threw away the phone and immediately entered the system. Compared with Weibo, the system is still more important. Ding! The system upgrade is successful. Please select the upgrade attribute bonus for the host. Attribute bonus 1, from Jeff Hornacek's off-ball running bonus, bonus attribute value 85 points. Attribution bonus 2, from Jeff Hornacek's mid-investment bonus, the bonus attribute value is 85 points. There are two options left, 85 without the ball and 85 mid-range shot. The value is the same. For Angzi, how to choose is indeed a good consideration. 85's no ball and 85 mid-range shot. An 11 lay down, thinking with closed eyes. The current off-ball is 70 and the CIC is 60. From the current numerical point of view, off the ball is already at the league's starting level, and CIC is still at the league average level, so choose to vote. Angzi did not hesitate too much and chose to upgrade the CIC attribute. The reason is that, as mentioned above, Angzi's off-ball is already at the league's starting level, so from the perspective of the fastest and maximum improvement, it is naturally in the process of upgrading. The investment income is the largest, so Angzi chose China investment. After the CIC attributes were upgraded, the system flashed a white light, and Angzi became a CIC and three-pointer omnipotent offensive player. Of course, he now only has CIC and three-pointers, plus a little ball-holding breakthrough. There are no low-level skills, back basket skills, etc. There is still a lot of room for improvement in the future. Angzi, who hadn't slept much all night, got up early and ran in the morning, and then went to the training hall. "Are you here?" When Angzi got dressed and walked into the training ground, Chip Engelland was already preparing training equipment. He saw Angzi and threw a basketball for Angzi. An 11 nodded, "Come on, you are very early today, Chip." "I'm insomnia, so I'll take a look early," Chip Engelland shrugged. Angzi took over the basketball and started training. Training at this time can be regarded as Angzi's additional training. Angzi made a few three-pointers from the position of the three-point line now. Watching Chip Engelland was amazed. Angzi's three-pointers were indeed too accurate. This season, Angzi's three-point shooting percentage was 52%, which is the whole league tallest. "And, I think you've been practicing midfielder recently, how are you doing?" Hearing Chip Engelland's words, Angzi's heart beat. "CIC. He was upgraded yesterday and is now placed in the Spurs, and he is also considered a top CIC. It's okay to practice. I have improved very quickly recently," Angzi said vaguely. His progress was indeed very fast, but Angzi felt that he had to hide for a while, not for anything else, just for his. The progress will not be too amazing. Angzi made a few mid-range shots in front of Chip Engelland. Without anyone defending, an 11 deliberately missed a few goals. But even so, Chip Engelland was very satisfied because he had already seen Angzi. The progress has been made. After a little training in the morning, the Spurs did not train again in the afternoon. Instead, under the organization of coach Sean Marks, they went into the locker room to watch the Lakers and the Thunder's fifth game. The two teams are currently tied 2-2, and both the Lakers and the Thunder have a chance to advance to the Western Conference Finals. For Kevin Durant and his three young brothers, this is a season they have grown up. They feel that they can get some results this season. For Kobe Bryant, this season is almost complete. This is his last chance. After the start of the game, the two teams played back and forth, but it was unpredictable. At the beginning of the second half, Andrew Bynum sprained his knee during the confrontation and never came back after leaving the game. The Lakers also lost this inside gate. The game became more and more difficult. In the second half, the Thunder won the game with all their enthusiasm. 3-2, the Thunder got the match point, and the Lakers also quickly announced that Andrew Bynum had a torn knee ligament reimbursed for the season. So here, the Spurs basically know who their opponents will be in the next round. The Celtics and 76ers started at the same time in the East, and the Celtics also relied on their own experience to win the Battle of Tianwangshan and also scored 3-2. And a day later, the sixth game between the Pacers and the Heat began. The tenacious Pacers won the sixth game with Roy Hibbert's 22 points, 11 rebounds and 4 blocks, as well as Paul George's 5 three-pointers. Dragged the game into a tie-break. LeBron James' face became black. LeBron James had an inescapable responsibility for his defeat in the finals last season. This season, after the Heat got the ball in full power, LeBron James played his best basketball, but the Heat's road to the playoffs was quite difficult. The Heat swept the Knicks in the first round, but this round, after the Spurs passed 5 games, the Heat was forced to a tie-break by the Pacers. This is something that LBJ cannot bear. At this moment, Old Beijing has been forced to the brink of rampage. To be continued. Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuan Sanbuletinji. Chapter 147. On the same day as the Heat, the Thunder defeated the Lakers and advanced to the next round 4-2. Then the Celtics also won the 76ers cleanly, and also advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals 4-2. In this way, in the 4 semifinals, only the Heat and Pacers were left without a winner. On May 26, 2012, LeBron James received the regular season MVP trophy at home. This season, he averaged 27.1 points, 7.9 rebounds, 6.2 assists, 1.9 steals, and 0.8 blocks per game. The team's record ranks number 1 in the East. Second, it can be said that this award deserves its name. At the beginning of the game, the commentator Charles Barkley exclaimed, "LeBron James took off his headband and his hairline was fully exposed. What is he doing?" Before he could think about it, Jean without hairband and Wei Gang started to take turns to show off. The Pacers couldn't stop the explosion of the two superstars. In the first half, LeBron James, who took off the headband, scored 24 points, and Wei scored 16 points. The two scored 40 points together to help the Heat get a 15-point lead. In the second half, LeBron James did not choose to rest. He continued to fight and scored again and again, helping the Heat expand the lead. In the end, the Heat won 23 points, won the Eastern Conference semifinals tiebreaker, and successfully advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. After the game, LeBron James was interviewed. When faced with a question that everyone wanted to ask, he said, "Why take off the headband? Because I without a headband is the strongest me." At this point, the East and West semifinals are all over, and the finals of the two divisions have started separately. The first is the duel between the Heat and the Celtics. This group of duels has some historical origins. LeBron James was beaten to Miami by the Green Army, and this battle is equivalent to LeBron James' revenge. But in the first game, LeBron James wore a headband again, which seemed to underestimate the Celtics. But the weakened Green Army could not withstand the impact of the Heat in their prime of life. At the end of the fourth quarter, the Heat easily won the first game. The Eastern Conference Finals has become less suspenseful, and in the eyes of many people, the Western Conference Finals will be a battle of the century. Will the Thunder's fourth team win with their youth, or the Spurs will rely on their veteran and team to win? Before the game is over, no one knows. However, it is worth mentioning that before the start of the Western Conference Finals, the Thunder announced that Serge Ibaka could not participate in the first game with the Spurs due to injury. Odds. On May 29, 2012, the league announced the best team. Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Dwight Howard, and Chris Paul were selected as the first team. Blake Griffin and Kevin Love, Andrew Bynum, Spurs players Tony Parker and Russell Westbrook were selected for the second team. Carmelo Anthony, Dirk Nowitzki, Tyson Chandler, Lagerondo, and Dwayne Wade Germany was selected to the third team. Later, the first battle between the Spurs and the Thunder began. In Miami, LeBron James ended a day of training. He did not practice or leave the training hall directly, took a shower in the locker room, and then turned on the TV. "LeBron, won't you go back?" McMillan packed his things and looked up at James. Yes, James sat in the chair. On the TV, the Spurs and Thunder game was about to begin. Spurs versus Thunder? Watch their game, McMillan shook his head. "LeBron, there is nothing to see. This season, we will definitely win the championship." LeBron James smiled. "Mike, I think so too, but I still want to know about our opponents. Their games are held in the evening. At that time, our training has ended." "What, isn't it?" McMillan seemed to be persuaded. He nodded, stopped moving, sat aside, and watched with James. San Antonio, in the home team's locker room, the Spurs have changed their clothes, and Vich is standing in the center of the court, making a pre-match speech. "As we all know, what is our goal for the season? Yes, it is the championship. And we have been the first in the league in the regular season. The first two rounds of the playoffs are also very smooth, but this does not mean that we are already invincible, does not mean we have no opponents. Look at our opponents this time, Oklahoma City Thunder. Who are they? The league's scoring leader, the best team, and the regular season MVP ranked second Kevin Durant special, the second team of the best team, all-star point guard Russell Westbrook, best sixth man James Harden, league block king Serge Ibaka. Look at our lineup again. There is only Tony Parker who is the second team in the league and the all-star point guard. It is completely incomparable with the Thunder. Therefore, this time, we have encountered the biggest opponent. We need to take out all of our strength, come and win every next game. The finals are beckoning to us. Then the starting lineup for this game is point guard Tony Parker, shooting guard Angzi, small forward Kahi Leonard, power forward Boris Diaw, center Tim Duncan, fight, friends. Vicky finally yelled a slogan, and the locker room yelled very cooperatively. Fighting. In the AT and T Arena, the Spurs once again returned to the Western Conference Finals. The avid Al-Quds fans were already standing in their seats, waiting for the start of the game. The starters of the two teams stood in the middle circle and were ready to jump the ball. The cheers and screams of the fans on the sidelines became louder and louder. With the referee's whistle, the basketball flew to the sky. Kevin Dew, who was in charge of the jump, ran, and Tim Duncan leaped high and met in the air. In the end, Kevin Durant, who bounced better, got the basketball, and the Thunder attacked first. In this game, due to the injury of Serge Ibaka, the Thunder adjusted their starting lineup. Kevin Durant topped the power forward position, and Sabos Frosa topped the small forward. In the position, three-point shooter Quinn Cook is the starter. Serge Ibaka's injury has stretched the Thunder's rotation. On the one hand, the Thunder hopes to maintain their scoring advantage in the interior, so they put Kevin Durant as a power forward. On the other hand, they also hope that James Harden can continue to stay on the bench so that he can come on the bench and contribute the firepower of the bench for the Thunder, so Quinn Cook, the 10,000-year-old water dispenser administrator, got the chance to start. In the first wave of the Thunder's offense, Angzi faced Kevin Durant, but this offense was finally ended by Russell Westbrook. This rapidly improving all-star point guard faced Tony Parker's defense. Past Tony Parker with the speed of the first step, and then with the help of Kendrick Perkins' pick-and-roll screen, he made a jumper and scored 2 points. During the entire offensive process, Angzi entangled Kevin Durant tightly, making Kevin Durant feel that he even had a hard time running. To be continued. Super Role Player. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 148. Tony Parker dribbled the ball through halftime, and the AT and T Arena rang out for cheering. In the Spurs tactics, the rhythm is a very important part. In the Grizzlies, the Spurs rhythm is fast, but facing for the Thunder, Vicky asked Tony Parker to control the rhythm and slow down. As a result, Tony Parker held the ball outside the three-point line for a while before accelerating and starting a breakthrough. An 11 quickly mentioned the position of the free throw line and gave Tony Parker a pick-and-roll screen. Then the two ran back against each other, and there was a chance. Tony Parker in turn passed the ball to an 11, and an 11 stepped on the three-point line at this time. Kevin Durant rushed over. Angzi adjusted without a hassle, took a step back and threw a three-pointer at the beginning of the game. The basketball got into the basket perfectly, 3 points. There was a scream of electronic synthesization in the arena, followed by huge cheers throughout the AT and T Arena. Russell Westbrook brought the ball to the front court. Kevin Durant took a step away from Angzi with a screen and asked for the ball from Russell Westbrook. The three-threat action faced Angzi's single defense, but with both hands, Kevin Durant hid the basketball in his arms. Obviously he did his homework. In the series against the Grizzlies, Angzi averaged 3 steals per game. And got 6 steals in the final battle. When Durant faced Angzi with the ball, he became very cautious, held the ball in his arms, beckoned for Kendrick Perkins' pick and roll, and then started the dribble, one sideways from Kendrick. Passing by Perkins, Angzi was blocked by the sturdy Perkins, and followed closely behind Kevin Durant. Durant didn't rush for a few steps, seeing Kawhi Leonard's replenishment approaching, so he made an emergency stop and shot. An 11 rushed over and blocked Kevin Durant's shooting angle with his open hand. The Thunder didn't have Serge Ibaka, Kevin Durant, and Kendrick Perkins were all pulled out, and there was no one on the inside. Tim Duncan got a rebound in his arms. The Spurs did not take this opportunity to break fast. They still slowed down. Tim Duncan waited for a while and handed the ball to Tony Parker to the front court. Tony Parker made a gesture and the Spurs wanted to play the second tactic. After a quick pull, Tony Parker cut in with the ball. Anzi came out from the other side, and Kevin Durant followed closely behind. Tony Parker's cut was cut off by the Thunder's supplementary defense. The French sports car then passed the ball. Anzi, who was at the top of the arc, received the basketball. He didn't stop for a moment, and took advantage of Kevin Durant's not catching up. To the basketball, a dribble under the crotch rushed in. After a few dribbles, Anzi rushed to the free throw line. Kevin Durant hadn't caught up yet, and the Thunder's defenses on both sides rushed over. Anzi did not hesitate, stepped on the free throw line and shot a jumper. With a scream, he made it again. In the opening game, Anzi actually scored 5 points in a row, which surprised many people. Because the playoffs reached the stage of the East and West Finals, there was only one game left to be broadcast every day, so the first game of the Thunder against the Spurs was broadcast on CCTV. The commentary group they sent was still guided by Ujia and Zhang. Regarding Anzi's opening score for all the 5 points from the Spurs, director Zhang yelled, and then said, "Today's Anzi is a bit unusual. The opening scored 5 points in a row, a three-pointer plus a free throw line center shot. If it weren't for this face, I thought it was Durant who went to the Spurs." Ujia smiled, "Director Zhang is joking, but this also shows one thing, that is, Anzi has made a lot of progress. You see, this is only one season after entering the NBA, and the CIC has it all." The two people's flattery of Anzi will not be mentioned for the time being. On the field, just as the two were talking, another round of offense and defense ended. On the Thunder side, Russell Westbrook made a breakthrough with the ball. After the ball was scored, Quinn Cook made a three-pointer and successfully hit, helping the Thunder equalize the score. Then, the Spurs' Tim Duncan shot a landmark 45-degree kick at a 45-degree angle, and successfully hit, and the Spurs led by 2 points. Then, the Thunder attacked again. Russell Westbrook held the ball to the front court, and the arena shouted defense. Anzi's opponent was still Kevin Durant. Durant did not hesitate after taking the ball. After a probing step, he broke directly from Anzi's right side and rushed into the three-point line. Kevin Durant stopped. Aim at the basket, jump shot in place. Anzi's blockade was also very timely. The basketball flew to the hoop, hit the neck of the basket, bounced twice on the hoop, and finally didn't make it. Kevin Durant exploded and didn't score. Under Anzi's defense, he has missed 2 consecutive goals. It was the Spurs' turn to attack, and Anzi's excellent offensive state was valued by his teammates. Tony Parker chose to cooperate with Anzi. The two completed a crossover run at the top of the arc. After Tony Parker reversed the run, he gave the basketball to Anzi. The Thunder changed their defenses because of this crossover. The Thunder player who defended Anzi became Russell Westbrook. This defensive matchup can be considered to be a big match, although Anzi is no better. How tall is Russell Westbrook? Anzi dribbled a few shots in place, and then the Spurs' second screen came. Boris Diaw mentioned high and gave Anzi a perfect pick-and-roll screen. With the help of the screen, Anzi rushed to the mid-range position. Suddenly stopped, and then in a seemingly crappy posture, the shot was shot. The posture was ugly and trembling, but the basketball got into the basket obediently. Go in again, Anzi's 7th point. He really became Kevin Durant today. Seeing Anzi hit another mid-range shot, director John couldn't help exclaiming. At this time, Gregvich on the sidelines was also surprised. As for Anzi's first mid-range shot, Vich thought it might be Anzi's man. We'll now look at Angzi's second. Although the posture is very ugly, the accuracy seems to have improved a lot. Vicky said with a smile, and CIC seems to have improved again. Chip Engelland, who was sitting behind Vicky, also echoed, yeah, and has been in extra training recently. It seems to be the guidance of Jeff Hornacek. Vicky smiled with satisfaction. Angzi's CIC accuracy is now, and the Spurs offense can improve again. The game continued. As director Jong said, Angzi seemed to have become Kevin Durant in this game. He scored again and again. After the first quarter, Angzi made another three-pointer and a mid-range shot. The entire first quarter scored 12 points, and the Spurs only scored 27 points. Perhaps because of putting too much energy on the offensive end, Kevin Durant slowly found his touch. After the opening two misses, Durant missed two consecutive goals and then recovered his shooting touch. At the end of the first quarter, Kevin Durant made 3 of 9 shots and scored 8 points. To be continued. Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 149. LeBron James watched the first quarter match between the Spurs and the Thunder in the locker room. There was nothing special. The two teams had poor performances. For example, the poor performance of Spurs Kawhi Leonard actually made Dai Quinku. K got several open opportunities. Fortunately, Dai Quincook was not his own and only seized 2 of them. And Kevin Durant's performance on the Thunder side was also average. Although he found his feel later, his performance was suppressed by Angzi throughout the first quarter. Thinking of this, LeBron James couldn't help but wonder, well, and, I remember when we met the Spurs in the regular season, he was a defensive player. How did he suddenly become the Spurs' #1 scorer? McMuller on the side shrugged and said that he was not clear. It is no wonder that a rookie role player, how could they spend too much time to pay attention to it? LeBron James' cell phone rang again, and it was Savannah who called his fiancée. LeBron James hurriedly explained a few words, turned off the TV and left. Savannah was waiting at home in a hurry. I called several times. San Antonio, the second quarter of the game restarted, Angzi was replaced and rested, the Spurs lineup became point guard Patrick Mills, shooting guard Manu Ginobili, small forward Kawhi Leonard, power forward DeJuan Blair and center Tim Duncan. On the Thunder side, James Harden played, plus Kevin Durant, who found the touch in the second half of the first quarter, brought Nick Collison, Derek Fisher and Nazil Mohammed to play second section. At the beginning of the second quarter, Manu Ginobili failed to make a mid-range shot, Kevin Durant grabbed a rebound, and the Thunder accelerated the offensive rhythm. Durant and James Harden made a perfect pick-and-roll cooperation at the top of the front court. Facing Kawhi Leonard's defense, James Harden took the ball and made a three-pointer, accurately hitting the basket. Then Derek Fisher steals Patrick Mills in the backcourt, Kevin Durant rushed to the front court and scored a three-pointer. The Thunder actually hit a wave of small climaxes, and the score was overtaken by the Thunder. The Spurs recovered, Manu Ginobili's resolute breakthrough caused a foul by veteran Nazr Mohammed, and he walked to the free throw line. Vicky also took advantage of this time to make a substitution. Instead of replacing Angzi, he replaced Danny Green. Kawhi Leonard's state was really bad in this game. In order to win, Vicky could only sacrificing Kawhi's playing time. After the substitution, the Spurs defense improved a lot. Manu made 2 free throws. James Harden faced Danny Green. After the singles, he missed the shot. Tim Duncan on the inside jumped high in Nick Corey. Sen took the rebound off his head. The next few minutes turned into Tim Duncan's performance time, shot in the front court and back court, and in a few minutes, the score was overtaken back. So in the CCTV broadcast room, director Jong joked, Tim Duncan deserves to be the best rookie of the season, and his performance is comparable to Angzi in the first quarter. On a Barrage live broadcast, a series of SIXs were shot out, and someone asked, "Is Director Zhang also visiting tigers?" A group of people pretending to be Instructor Zhang replied, "Yes, my Hupu ID is I won't tell you, he he he." Tim Duncan's outburst helped the Spurs overtake the score. Without Angzi to block Kevin Durant, the Spurs tied with the Thunder in the half of the second quarter. Taking advantage of the opportunity of a dead ball, Vicky made another substitution. Angzi replaced Tim Duncan. The reason why Vicky made the substitution was also because the Thunder put Durant at the power forward position and used Nick Ko. Lisson took the position of center and then replaced Sabos Forosa as a small forward. So in the second half of the second quarter, Angzi once again faced Kevin Durant. In a few minutes, Kevin Durant had brushed his stats to 7 of 14, and in the first half of the second quarter, he shot 4 of 5. And Angzi's appearance is to limit Kevin Durant and help the team pull the score apart. As soon as Angzi came on, Kevin Durant made another free throw and made 2 free throws, followed by the Spurs offense. Patrick Mills took possession of the ball and advanced to the front court, and made a small pick and roll with Manu Ginobili. Then Manu rushed into the interior with the ball, successfully throwing the ball, and the two teams continued to tie. Kevin Durant held the ball to the front court and Angzi posted it. Durant didn't waste any time. He took a quick step and broke through Angzi's side, and then stepped on the three-point line. Keep it dry. Durant is very confident in this goal. He feels very good in the second quarter, but it is helpless that Angzi played. Durant's dry draft was blocked by Angzi and deviated from the basket. DeJuan Blair got well inside and grabbed a rebound. Durant didn't realize how perfect Angzi's defense was. 1 minute later, he continued to play Angzi singles with the ball. It should be said that he and Angzi are also old opponents. They played 3 times in the regular season, but in these 3 games, Angzi's defense of Kevin Durant was not considered successful. At best it only caused some interference for Durant. When it comes to defending Durant as a blacksmith, that has never happened. And now Angzi is also clever on the defensive end. He doesn't pursue that kind of perfect defense, but instead does that kind of defense that has certain flaws. The slightest flaw revealed will make his opponent follow this flaw. Attack, and when they found that Angzi had made up for the flaw, everything was too late. Durant is in such a state now. Faced with a little space leaked by Angzi, Durant thought he had a perfect shot space, and then took the ball to break through a jumper. Angzi's blockade came afterwards, which perfectly blocked Durant's shooting space, and then he hit the iron again. With a bang after Angzi played, Durant was a double tie. DeJuan Blair took off the rebound again, and there was a round of applause from the sidelines. Greg Vick also clapped his hands. The Spurs are widening the point difference, and the opposite Scott Brooks still knows nothing. The Spurs turned around and shot a three-pointer. Danny Green's three-pointer accurately hit the basket and the Spurs started to lead. Then, under Angzi's defense, Kevin Durant's mid-range shot missed again, 3 consecutive times. The Spurs seized the opportunity. Patrick Mills made a layup and the Spurs expanded their lead. In this regard, Angzi's appearance locked Kevin Durant. In the second half of the second quarter, the Spurs continued to expand their lead. When Scott Brooks found out, it was too late. At the end of the first half, the Spurs 62-52, leading by 10 points into the intermission. To be continued. Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 150. During the intermission, the Spurs sat quietly in the home team's locker room to rest, and Vicky had nothing to set up, so the home team's locker room was quiet and peaceful. In the visiting team's locker room, Scott Brooks roars with excitement constantly. As a coach who has no tactical on-the-spot resilience and poor resilience, Scott Brooks is good at only these things. Scott Brooks is very good at cultivating rookies, and he is also very good at chicken soup, so during the intermission, facing a 10-point lag, Scott Brooks inevitably got angry and turned on his hairdryer. As for the Spurs, until the third quarter was about to begin, Vich stood up and announced the substitution in the second half. In the second half, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, Anzi, Kawhi Leonard, and Tim Duncan, 5 of you played. At the beginning of the second half, the Spurs played all the main players. Kawhi Leonard topped the power forward position, and the Thunder also played 3 minorities. With Derek Fisher and Kendrick Perkins, the Thunder were also the main players. Out, also let the Thunder's most important three-point shooter Derek Fisher stay on the field. At the beginning of the third quarter, the Thunder constantly approached the point difference amidst the roar of Scott Brooks, but for the Thunder, with Anzi on the court, Kevin Durant became something they would never be able to open. An offensive point. In the second half, Kevin Durant lost himself completely in the ever-increasing confrontation between the two. When Kevin Durant faced Anzi with the ball, Anzi posted it, using constant intrusion to interfere with Kevin Durant's dribble, and when he faced Anzi without the ball, Anzi would die. The entanglement of Durant prevents Durant from having a chance to catch the ball easily. Anyway, Anzi is doing everything possible to defend Durant. At the end of the third quarter, Kevin Durant's numbers became 9 of 25 shots. In the second half of the second and third quarters, Kevin Durant only made 2 of 11 shots, but the Thunder relied on the play of Russell Westbrook and James Harden still bit the score. In the fourth quarter, the Spurs and the Thunder still drew a tie, and the 10-point difference was maintained to the end of the game. At the end of the game, the Spurs won the Western Conference Final at 10,999. After the second quarter, Anzi put all his energy on the defensive end. Therefore, Anzi only scored 17 points in the entire game, although Anzi is relatively high. He scored, but Anzi scored 12 points in the first quarter of this game. In addition to scoring, Anzi also had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block. Under Anzi's defense, Kevin Durant became a passer in the fourth quarter. After 4 quarters, Kevin Durant made 9 of 27 shots and only 33 from the field, but Russell Weiss, the outstanding performance of Westbrook and James Harden allowed the Thunder to avoid a disastrous defeat. After the first game of the Western Conference Finals, the Spurs' victory is not surprising. After all, the Spurs in this series have home court advantage. A home court victory is what they should be. If the Spurs can't win, the media will start advocating. The Thunder's strength far exceeds the Spurs. Now, the 10-point loss of the Thunder is a very normal loss in the eyes of media reporters. This loss shows that the Thunder and the Spurs are a group of comparable opponents in the Western Conference Finals. Especially in the second half, the Thunder relied on Russell Westbrook's performance, biting the score. The 10-point loss occurred in the first half, and the Spurs and the Thunder drew a tie in the second half. This tie shows that the Thunder have a chance to win. Oklahoma City's media think so. Not only do they think so, they also believe that the Thunder lacked the inside gate and the regular season blocking king Serge Ibaka in this game. After the game, according to Brooks, Serge Ibaka's comeback is imminent, either the next game or the next game. The Oklahoma City media believe that once Serge Ibaka returns, the Thunder can make up the last link, that is, the defense of the inside and the offensive firepower of the mid-range, when the Spurs will not be the Thunder's opponent. However, this kind of argument will only happen to the Oklahoma City media. There is no such argument in the national sports media. Their consensus is that the Spurs and the Thunder are likely to play 7 games. The Spurs won the first game, and the people of the Holy City were still very satisfied, so they didn't care about all kinds of arguments from the outside world. For the Spurs, the first game showed good trends in many places. For example, Anzi state. Regardless of offense and defense, Anzi continued its good state in the second round. The offensive end can score 12 points in the first quarter, and the defensive end Kevin Durant made 5 of 22 shots in 3 quarters. You need to know, Kevin Durant is the scoring leader in the regular season. For the Thunder, Kevin Durant's scoring point was locked by Anxi. They need other players to make more efforts to make up for Kevin Durant. The score brought by the special misfire is missing. Regarding Kevin Durant's point, the Oklahoma City media also have something to say. In the regular season, facing Anxi's defense, Kevin Durant has never been so miserable. He made 9 of 27 shots in the game and played against Anxi. He made 5 of 22 shots and all represented Anxi's successful defense against Kevin Durant in this game. Of course, what the Oklahoma City media want to say is not to praise Anxi. What they want to say is that if Kevin Durant can get back to the regular season, then the Thunder will win the game. Regarding the arguments of the Oklahoma City media, Anxi never took it seriously, because he really defended Kevin Durant, and Anxi could only laugh at what he could do to get back to the regular season. Because it's very simple from playing Grizzly Bears, Anxi feels that his state is very good. This state does not refer to his technical state and physical state, because Anxi's technical state and physical state are fixed. Yes, that is a system bonus. The state Anxi feels is good. It is Anxi's consciousness. Anxi discovered that his offensive and defensive consciousness seems to have reached his personal best during this period. Playing the Grizzlies, Anxi solved the Spurs' perimeter defense with his own peak of consciousness. The offensive end also played the best performance of his personal career. In the first game of the Thunder, Anxi also continued this good state. For things like consciousness, Anxi only vaguely felt that his consciousness was at its peak, but he was confused and uncertain, but the only thing Anxi can be sure of is that he is based on his current ability. It is still difficult to play this kind of defensive dominance and to perform well on the offensive end. Therefore, Anxi knew that a certain attribute must have affected his current state, so Anxi set his sights on the system, hoping to find the answer from the system. To be continued. Super Role Player. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 151. After looking for a circle in the system, an 11 finally found it in a corner. 2 red light spots. Anxi didn't pay attention to such small spots before, but this time he searched for the third and outer layers and finally found these 2 light spots. Putting his attention on this light spot, an 11 found that a line of words appeared out of thin air in front of him. Consciousness, divided into offensive consciousness and defensive consciousness, which fluctuates with the host state. Offensive awareness, 0-99 floating, the current value is 95. Defensive awareness, 0-99 floating, the current value is 99. Anxi took a deep breath. Well, all the questions have been resolved. In other words, even if there is a system bonus, Anxi's state will fluctuate, and the factors affecting the fluctuations are these 2 consciousness attributes. An 11 still doesn't know how much the fluctuation of these 2 consciousness attributes will have on his state, especially the offensive consciousness and defensive consciousness have fallen to the bottom. After all, he has just discovered that this consciousness attribute exists in the Jersey system. For Anxi, the 2 consciousness attributes have reached the peak. He has seen it before. Indeed, the whole person seems to have improved by 1 level. If Anxi in the regular season is equivalent to the previous Lagaby, it will be second in the playoffs. After the round, Anxi is a bit like Andrei Kirilenko at the peak. At present, Anxi does not know whether these 2 consciousness attributes will always maintain such a high value. For Anxi, the discovery of these 2 consciousness attributes means that Anxi can predict his own state in the next game in advance. The Spurs, who won the first game, rested for 2 days in San Antonio. During the second game between the Heat and the Celtics, the Heat once again won the second game of the Eastern Conference Finals, leading the Celtics 2-0. The first 2 games of the Eastern Conference Finals seem to have fulfilled the predictions of those media reporters. The Heat will easily advance to the finals, or according to some extreme reporters, after the 2 games, the Heat have locked in the finals. Now, they just wait for the Thunder and Spurs to decide the winner. On May 29, 2012, the second game of the Western Conference Finals between the Thunder and the Spurs began at the at AMP.T Arena. Before the game, the league announced the list of the best rookie team, which has a lot to do with the Spurs. In the rookie team announced by the league, because of the same number of votes, there were 7 players selected for the first team. These 7 players were Kenneth Faried of the Nuggets, Kelly Irving of the Cavaliers, and Lee of the Timberwolves. Keel Rubio, Klay Thompson of the Warriors, Brandon Knight of the Pistons, Kawhi Leonard of the Spurs and Angzi of the Spurs. Because Kawhi Leonard, Brandon Knight, and Klay Thompson had the same votes, there were 7 players in the rookie team. The second team of the all-rookie team were selected by the Nets' Martian Brooks, the Rockets' Chandler Parsons, the Kings' Isaiah Thomas, the Cavaliers' Tristan Thompson and the Timberwolves' Derek Williams. Angzi was finally selected for the all-rookie team. This is what Angzi did not expect, and his selection advantage is still relatively large. The number of votes is second only to Kelly Irving and Ricky Rubio. It can be seen that there are still a lot of media in the league. The reporter recognized Angzi's. To be selected into the best rookie lineup, Angzi's $500,000 bonus can be obtained. This is the most important thing. The second game between the Thunder and the Spurs also began very quickly. The 2 teams are still the main players. The Spurs start with point guard Tony Parker, shooting guard Angzi, small forward Kawhi Leonard, and power forward Boris Diaw. And center Tim Duncan. On the Thunder side, Serge Ibaka is still missing. They sent point guard Russell Westbrook, shooting guard Derek Fisher, small forward Sabos Frosa, and power forward Kevin Durant and center Kendrick Perkins lineup. Different from the previous game, the Thunder decided to mention Derek Fisher in the starting lineup, allowing Quinn Cook to continue to follow James Harden in the second team and contribute a steady 3-pointer. At the beginning of the game, the rhythm was the same as the previous one. The Spurs used the offensive positional battle, coupled with the defensive end of Angzi, to firmly grasp the advantage of the field in their own hands. Tony Parker had a good start. After breaking through Russell Westbrook with speed, he completed a field goal and a foul caused by a single Derek Fisher. Angzi continued to show his excellent state on the defensive end. In the face of Kevin Durant, Angzi's defense can almost be described as airtight. Kevin Durant's offense, whether it is singles with the ball or a shot after receiving the ball without running, is difficult to make a perfect hit under Angzi's defense. Kevin Durant's singles with the ball, the Spurs still let Angzi defend Durant alone. This has been proven to be the right thing in the last game. This game * sent Charles Barkley and Ken. The combination of Nesmith's commentary, the 2 are rare and serious. Kevin Durant's breakthrough, emergency stop jumper. Oh no. Still not in. Angzi's winding defensive defense is too good. Maybe the Thunder should have realized all this early and let Kevin Durant give in. Right. The Spurs offense, a small cooperation between Tony Parker and Boris Diaw, easily tore the Thunder's defense line. Tony Parker cut into the inside and completed the layup. In the face of the Thunder, the Spurs offense doesn't have to worry about problems like this. After all, the Thunder is not a defensive team. Of course, if the Thunder is an offensive team, it's not quite right. Strictly speaking, the Thunder is even more. Like a team with superstars and talents, the offense relies on few, and the defense relies on the inside double gate and outside line of Sabos Forosa. And now Serge Ibaka is not at the Thunder's defense has indeed dropped by a notch, so the Spurs offense is very smooth, except for Kendrick Perkins in the inside against the Spurs. In addition to the offense that has a certain impact, the Spurs offense is unstoppable by the Thunder. After more than 6 minutes in the first quarter, the Spurs gained a 10-point lead. Scott Brooks called a timeout at this time, and Kenny Smith sighed, Scott Brooks' timeout is too late. If he can call this timeout earlier, the Thunder is now at most 5 points behind. Charles Barkley took the stubbornly over, however, now the Thunder are 10 points behind. On the one hand, every Spurs player is in good condition. For example, Tony Parker has scored 11 points. Another example is Anzi, he defended. Kevin Durant hasn't scored yet. On the other hand is the timeout of Scott Brooks. If he can call this timeout earlier, then the Thunder can make adjustments earlier and let Russell Westbrook, who is in better shape, play more. Maybe the Thunder have already this decline can be stopped. To be continued. Super Role Player. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 152. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith criticized Scott Brooks on the spot command, but if they knew that if they suspended the command, Scott Brooks still hadn't learned his lesson, the two major commentators on Asterisk TV would probably roll their eyes silently on the spot. After the timeout, Scott Brooks did not ask Kevin Durant to reduce his personal offense, but asked Durant to get back to his form as soon as possible. Poor Scott Brooks still seems to think that Kevin Durant can be under Anzi's defense. Calmly scored, but the current situation is Anzi is in excellent form, and the defending Kevin Durant can't get two good scoring opportunities. After a timeout, Kevin Durant took the ball directly. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith had big eyes and small eyes, not knowing what to say. Is it because Kevin Durant is too confident? The two dare not say anything. For the superstar Kevin Durant, everything is possible. What if Kevin Durant breaks out next? Then they both got slapped in the face? Although Charles Barkley is often slapped in the face, his slaps are usually joking. This time he and Kenny Smith said so formally that if they were to be hit again, it would be embarrassing. So the two fell silent and watched the Thunder's attack quietly. Still as usual, Anzi posted it up, using constant physical confrontation to interfere with Kevin Durant's dribble. Kevin Durant immediately began to adjust his dribble, one crotch, one behind the other. Anzi increased his range of movements, bypassing Kevin Durant's body, and was about to grab the ball. However, this gave Durant a chance. Kevin Durant took advantage of the trend and took a step backward, one step away from the three-point line, and made a three-pointer. Anzi was just about to get the ball, so he didn't have time to take off and interfere. He watched the basketball get into the basket and scored. Kevin Durant scored for the first time in this game. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith looked at each other, as if they were saying, fortunately, they didn't speak up to criticize Scott Brooks. However, a single ball does not mean that Durant has already broken through Anzi's defense. Anzi himself is still upset there. He just made a principled error. The defensive end still cannot be impulsive. It is necessary to prevent every possible offensive method of the opponent. 1 minute later, Kevin Durant took the ball to face Anzi again. Just after scoring a goal, Kevin Durant was ready to pursue the victory and open his scoring account. Facing Anzi, Kevin Durant began to avoid physical confrontation. He found that Anzi was consciously looking for physical confrontation in these two games. This kind of high-intensity confrontation was quite unfriendly to Durant. After all, Durant's physical fitness is not as good as Anzi, he is very thin, like a bamboo pole. Held the ball and made a few fake moves. Kevin Durant changed direction with the ball, shook Anzi once, then dribbled the ball down the hip, received a reversing sprint, and cut in from the right side of Anzi all at once. Anzi also turned around, and the moment Kevin Durant made a jumper, he slapped it on the basketball. Blocks. Kevin Durant's goal failed to continue. An 11 used a big cap from behind to let Durant know that his defense is everywhere. After blocked shots, the basketball flew out of bounds. The Thunder had the ball and they needed to serve again. Anzi jumped in place a few times and looked at Durant provocatively. In these two games, Anzi's defense was quite revenge for the regular season. Finally, he scored a goal. Kevin Durant found that the rhythm quickly changed back. Angzi's defense was still so aggressive. After a few goals, Kevin Durant failed to score. This time Scott Brooks really couldn't stand it anymore. It was another timeout, and he directly replaced Kevin Durant. But at this time, the first quarter is coming to an end, and the Thunder are already 16 points behind. It looks like a fiasco is coming. James, you are on the court, and together with Russell, speed up the offensive rhythm, and strive to use the fastest speed to get the points back. With 2 minutes and 22 seconds left in the first quarter, the Thunder made a substitution, and the Spurs also made a substitution, but Angzi was not replaced, and Popovich gave Angzi a new task. And, next, if Kevin Durant is not on the court, you will defend. Guard Russell Westbrook. In addition, Patrick, you replace Tony, Manu replaces Tim, Boris tops the center position, and then the Thunder will definitely speed up the attacking rhythm. We don't have to control the rhythm anymore, and follow the rhythm of the Thunder. Then Popovich looked at Angzi again, and, your next task is the heaviest, defending Russell Westbrook like Kevin Durant, can you do it? And 11 nodded, no problem, coach. The game restarted, and Popovich began to make the most of Angzi's current excellent state. After Kevin Durant was off the field, Angzi remained on the court. Thunder attack, Russell Westbrook just brought the ball to the front court, he saw a strong man rushing straight ahead, and when he took a closer look, it was Angzi. Russell Westbrook is starting to get serious. The Spurs didn't mark Russell Westbrook much before. They have always used Tony Parker to defend Russell Westbrook alone to cooperate with the inside team. Defense, that's why Russell Westbrook scored consecutively, and one person took the responsibility of the Thunder's scoring. In fact, this is also a strategy of Popovich. After all, one person can't beat a team anyway. Facing Angzi's defense, Russell Westbrook knew that the Spurs really wanted to defend him this time. When dribbling, Russell Westbrook was cautious. After dribbling on the outside for a while, Russell Westbrook went straight to the ball and cut in. An 11 posted it and squeezed Russell Westbrook with his body. With his physical advantage, Angzi let Russell Westbrook. Brook felt uncomfortable everywhere, and only rushed to the free throw line, and Westbrook had to stop. Turned his back to Angzi, and then divided the ball. After scored, Westbrook suddenly withdrew from the outside line and again opened his hands for the ball. James Harden, who had just received the ball, immediately returned the pass, and Russell Westbrook shot a jumper directly on the three-point line. But unfortunately, Angzi's blockade was in place again, and the basketball hit the backboard and bounced back. Kawhi Leonard jumped up, grabbed the rebound directly, and launched a wave of fast break according to Popovich's instructions. Rushed to the front court and scored the faster Patrick Mills. Patrick Mills succeeded in a layup. The Spurs further widened the point difference. To be continued. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletnji. Chapter 154. At the end of the first quarter, Charles Barker said in a sympathetic tone, "Poor Thunder, the current state of Angzi is so good that it explodes. It's just a defense against anyone." Kenny Smith also said, at the end of the first quarter, the Spurs had a huge lead of 3,920 with 19 points. The Thunder may have to think about the problem with them. In my opinion, Scott Brooks shouldn't replace Kevin Durant, even if he can't make even one shot. Kenny is right, maybe Scott Brooks hasn't realized that Kevin Durant's inability to score is not because of his poor touch, but Angzi's defense is too strong. Charles Barkley and Kenny Smith screamed at Scott Brooks. In the first quarter of this game, Scott Brooks' adjustment was indeed a disaster. Fortunately, Scott Brooks reacted in the second quarter. Let's go. In the face of three outside all-star attackers, Angzi can't guard against so many people alone. As a result, the game returned to the rhythm of the Spurs scoring and the Thunder chasing points. Relying on the performance of James Harden and Russell Westbrook, the Thunder reluctantly did not continue to expand the points difference, but passed a wave in the middle of the second quarter. Small, narrowed the difference to 15 points. At the beginning of the second half, the Spurs still controlled the point difference steadily. The 15-point advantage has been maintained. For the Thunder, if you want to chase points, Kevin Durant must open this scoring point because Kevin Durant is the one. The Thunder's strongest scoring point, but now this scoring point is locked tightly by Anzi, there is no chance at all. In more than 2 quarters, Kevin Durant made 3 of 11 shots and only scored 8 points. In the second half of the third quarter, the sudden change, the Spurs began to speed up the offensive rhythm under the guidance of Vicky. Tony Parker cut into the front court and rushed to the inside line to succeed. Then turned to defend against Russell Westbrook's strong shot. Tim Duncan grabbed the rebound, and then launched a fast break. Anzi rushed to the front court to catch the ball and complete the dunk. In a few minutes, the Spurs widened the point difference. 20 points or more. Scott Brooks was forced to call a timeout again. For the Thunder, the best result of this game is to win. If you can't win, it's acceptable, but if it's a fiasco, you can't. Accepted. Adjustment. Scott Brooks roared from the coaching bench, and then motivated his players with a passionate tone. The game restarted, and the Spurs continued to be all-powerful. The 20-point difference was far from enough for the Spurs. According to Vich's vision, he must determine the victory of the game before the end of the third quarter. After returning to the court, the Thunder's offensive became more fierce and resolute. Russell Westbrook held the ball and rushed to the inside resolutely. It was a desperate stance. After rushing into the inside, he actually faced Tim Duncan's block, go straight to the basket. Beep beep. The referee's whistle blows, the ball is in. Add penalties. There was a burst of cheers on the Thunder bench, which naturally corresponded to the whole P, the boos of the arena. Russell Westbrook was in a state of excitement, constantly swinging his fists downwards, roaring in excitement, and stood on the free throw line amidst boos. With a free throw, Russell Westbrook scored 21. The Thunder quickly returned to defense. It seemed that after being inspired by Scott Brooks, they all started desperately. The defensive end of the action also increased. Tony Parker cut into the inside, and was driven by Kendrick Perkins and Russell Westbrook. It was so squeezed that it eventually fell to the floor. The referee's whistle sounded again, the Thunder fouled, Tony Parker walked to the free throw line, made 2 free throws, the score was close to 1 point by the Thunder. It was the Thunder's offense again. This time the breakthrough was replaced by James Harden and rushed to the inside. James Harden threw the basketball in an extremely strange posture. The referee once again blew the whistle and fouled again. Manu Ginobili touched James Harden's arm, but after the referee blew his whistle, Manu Ginobili jumped up and began to complain about the referee's whistle. Because just now, the referee began to turn off the whistle. When the Spurs attacked, the Thunder made a lot of moves, but the referee was indifferent. Now that the Thunder is attacking, James Harden found a whistle, and the referee actually blew the penalty. Different, as an experienced veteran in the league, Manu Ginobili must stand up and put pressure on the referee, otherwise the game will be ruined by the referee sooner or later. The referee warned Manu Ginobili. Manu closed it as soon as he saw it, and stopped complaining about the penalty. And Vicky also took advantage of this free throw opportunity to make another substitution, replacing Tim Duncan with Kawhi Leonard, replacing Tony Parker with Danny Green, and replacing Boris Diaw with Dewayne Blair. Set up a small lineup, and all the Spurs' 3 single defense champions are on the court. Looking at the situation, they are going to fight the Thunder and rely on personal defense to limit the Thunder's offense. Manu Ginobili's complaint is still effective. The Spurs' offense and the Thunder's defensive actions are much smaller, and they seemed to be afraid of the referee looking for a whistle. After all, this game is still the Spurs' home game. Although the referee will favor the Thunder, don't dare to go too far. In the Thunder's offensive round, the Spurs changed their defenses more quickly after they switched to a smaller lineup. In addition to Anzi defending Kevin Durant, everyone else would make many changes. Russell Westbrook had the ball, breaking through and rushing into the inside line basket, but he was defended by DeJuan Blair's big hat and nailed the board. As a result, the Thunder, which had just improved by making foul tactics, stalled again. Russell Westbrook's offensive failure proved that it is not enough to win the game by hard work alone. At the end of the third quarter, the Spurs led 26 points into the fourth quarter. Vicky smiled and withdrew all the main players. In the fourth quarter, the Spurs lineup became point guard Patrick Mills, shooting guard Gary Neal, small forward Danny Green, power forward DeJuan Blair and center Thiago Split. And Scott Brooks has been hesitating, should he let the main players continue to play and fight for this victory? In the end, Scott Brooks still slumped to give up. After the third quarter, the Thunder fell behind by 26 points. If the fourth quarter continues to fight, even if it wins, it will be a tragic victory. The main players' physical fitness Spurs are bound to be exhausted. Looking at the Spurs, the main players have long been talking and laughing on the bench. Then back to the home game, do the Thunder still want to win? Losing 2 away games in a row is acceptable to Scott Brooks, but if the next home game is lost because of this away game, it will not be a good deal. What's more, even if the Thunder send all the main players, will they definitely win? Scott Brooks dare not bet. Thus, in the fourth quarter, the Thunder replaced the full bench and announced the abandonment of the game. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen Sanbuletinji. Chapter 155. In 11,991, the Spurs had their second home game. They won by 28 points. For the Thunder, they need to reflect on themselves. The 0-2 lag prevents them from losing. The game ended, Charles Barkley concluded. This game. In the 2 games, the Thunder exposed a lot of problems. I think after the game, the Thunder will definitely be asked these questions more than once. Yes, Kevin Durant state. In this game, he only made 5 of 15 shots and only scored 14 points. In the last game, he made 9 of 27 shots and scored points. In the 2 games, the combined shooting percentage was only 33. This should be the most important problem for the Thunder to solve. Under Angzi's defense, Kevin Durant couldn't find the side for shooting at all. One of the strongest scoring points in the regular season was misfired. This is fatal to the Thunder. Kenny Smith took the topic, and he aimed his finger at Kevin Durant. Indeed, in these 2 games, Kevin Durant's performance was not like a star. Perhaps the so-called "do lau ers" teasing by the fans is not groundless. I think the emergence of Angzi, including the other 2 Spurs players Danny Green and Kawhi Leonard, will also make more teams realize that a player with a super perimeter single defense ability is what a for the happy thing. He can take the salary of a role player and help you solve the superstars in the opponent's line, Charles Barkley continued, but what he said made people think deeply. Kenny Smith continued to analyze the current problems of the Thunder. There is another problem with the Thunder that is also very serious, that is, Scott Brooks' on-the-spot command ability. Perhaps in the press conference after the game, we can get Scott Brooks' personal information through reporters. View. As soon as the game was over, Scott Brooks immediately went to the press conference after the game. He wanted to end the press conference when there were few reporters, but to his disappointment, when he arrived at the press conference, many reporters have already sat there, and reporters from major media have all come. Including Sam Amick of USA Today, Nick Friedel of Yahoo, Jonathan Jawani of Yahoo, Lee Jenkins of Sports Illustrated and so on. Scott Brooks had to bite the bullet and get to the center, then signaled the press officer's post-match press conference to begin. Joining Scott Brooks for the post-match press conference was James Harden. He was the Thunder's best player in this game. He scored the Thunder's highest 33 points and 4 rebounds in the game. 7 assists. The reporters began to ask questions eagerly. Coach Scott, does this fiasco mean that the Thunder have lost the initiative in the series? Scott Brooks frowned. At the beginning of the press conference, these reporters were ready to push the Thunder into the abyss. I think we have only played 2 games, and they are all away games. It is too early to say these. The reporters are not going to let the topic go, but you lost 28 points in this game. This is not a normal loss. Yes, we lost 28 points, which proves that we have a lot of problems, such as the absence of Serge, because Serge is not there, our offensive and defensive are missing, and the next game Sergey you can come back, so I think you can look forward to the next game instead of seizing the loss of this game. Scott Brooks finally dragged out Serge Ibaka. It should be said that after this fiasco, Serge Ibaka became the only hope of the Thunder. If you want to reverse the situation in this series, then Serge Ibaka's comeback is the only thing Scott Brooks can use. The reporters seemed to be persuaded by Scott Brooks, so they went around asking some other questions. Then, USA Today's Sam Amick changed the topic again. Coach Scott, in this game, you have slowed down the adjustments from the first quarter, and Greg is a lot slower. May I ask if this is the Thunder's loss? One of the main reasons. Scott Brooks choked. Is this asking him to admit his mistake? Scott Brooks would not admit that this was in the playoffs, and if he did admit it, it would be too bad for the military. I think in that situation, you should trust the stars of your team, so I don't think my adjustment is slow. A seemingly perfect answer, but Sam Amick quickly turned his face to James Harden. Mr. James Harden, do you think that if Mr. Scott Brooks replaces you sooner, the Thunder will you lose 28 points? After all, you played well in this game, but when Kevin Durant couldn't score, you never played. James Harden was suddenly embarrassed. He hesitated and didn't know what to say. After dozens of seconds of silence, he explained, I don't think there is any problem. Kevin is a great player. We should trust him. Then the question is, Coach Scott, Kevin Durant is in such a bad state, how would you adjust his state? Sam Amick suddenly changed the front and asked Scott Brooks for a moment. Dumbfounded. The Thunder's press conference was thus controlled by Sam Amick. His questions followed one after another, showing the style of his name, but for Scott Brooks, the experience of this press conference was not a good one. Throughout the press conference, Scott Brooks could only be stubborn. Thunder still has a chance. The series is still a 5-5 situation. We should trust Kevin Durant. Serge will be back in the next game. His comeback will give us the confidence to beat the Spurs. Anyway, the central point is that the Thunder's 28-point fiasco is nothing. They still have Serge Ibaka not on. They should trust Kevin Durant because Kevin Durant has never let them down. The Spurs press conference only started after the Thunder's end. Regarding some reporters reporting, Gregovic changed his low-key style and directly replied with a short sentence, dead duck mouth. Yes, in the eyes of all Spurs coaches, players, and fans, the Thunder is a dead duck, and a 0-2 lag means that the Thunder are completely behind in the series, although the Spurs still dare not say that they will win the series game, but the Thunder forcefully said that they are still 50-50 against the Spurs, which is uncomfortable. Facing the reporters' repeated questions, Gregovic didn't keep a low profile anymore. He directly replied, the next 2 Oklahoma City games, we only need to win one of them to get the match point up. The meaning of this sentence doesn't need to be obvious anymore. The Spurs only need a victory to get the match point. By then, the Thunder will no longer have to be hard, because they can't be hard. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL. Super Role Player. Author, Yuen San Buletinji. Chapter 156. In a suburban apartment in San Antonio, Angzi received a card from Evo Clark, which was a bonus for the best rookie team. There are 450,000 in it, and my commission has been deducted. Evo Clark pointed to the card and said. Angzi nodded and put the card away. Also, Jordan Sports is going to arrange a trip to China in the summer. I hope you can arrange it. Evo Clark came to San Antonio this time to deal with Angzi off-season matters, so he began to report to Angzi one by one. The trip to China will be scheduled in mid-July, and the specific time will be determined after the playoffs are completed. Well, there are several more endorsements from China, including the endorsement contract of this insurance company, and the endorsement contract of Bright Milk, UC. Let's talk about the price with them first. It's almost the same, so I'll pick them up, but it's the same as the previous one. I will put it in the playoffs and talk about it later. Angzi began to pack his luggage, and he had to set off in the afternoon. Follow the Spurs to Oklahoma City. No problem, there are also endorsements from the US. McDonald's hopes to sign an endorsement contract with you, shoot an advertisement, and put it on the Chinese market. Angzi lowered his head to pack his clothes, and replied casually, take it, yes, the price has to be negotiated. Evo Clark replied with a good sentence, and then announced that his work was complete. Okay, and that's it. This summer, roughly, you will have a trip to China, shoot 3 endorsement ads, and add there should be 4 advertisements that Shanghai Jordan Sports plans to put in China, but these advertising endorsements can bring you more than $5 million in income, 1 year. Angzi looked up and smiled. After reaching the Western Conference Finals, Angzi became more and more popular in China, especially his performance is so good. Now he is the first person in Chinese basketball, a first person, naturally. There will be popularity that matches him, so all kinds of endorsements will come to the door. Angzi chose to accept it all, not for anything else, just because there is nothing wrong with these endorsement contracts. Why not accept it? These are all money. According to Evo Clark's estimation, the combined income is as high as $5 million per year, which is no small amount. After packing up the luggage, Evo Clark also left. Abby drove Angzi to the arena. As for Abby herself, she would drive directly to the airport, and then fly to Oklahoma with her colleagues from Fox Sports. Homer City. Angzi dragged the box, sat down on the bus early, and listened to the song with earphones. Manu Ginobili came up soon, sat down beside Angzi, and then glanced at Angzi. "And, what song do you listen to?" Angzi took off the headphones and replied, "Chinese song." Angzi also said too much, because he knew that Manu likes to listen to some Latin songs, and this Chinese song would definitely not arouse Manu's interest. Sure enough, Manu shrugged, then took out his mobile phone, put on headphones and listened to the music, then closed his eyes and slowly fell asleep in Latin music. Angzi is listening to music while reading the news. For example, yesterday, the Miami Heat went to Boston for an away game. However, in the first game of Boston, amidst the cheers of 20,000 Celtics fans, the Heat lost the game and the total score was defeated by the Celtics. It was 12. For another example, the domestic pre-Olympic training camp has already started, but neither Angzi nor the Arab League appeared in the big squad. Angzi is playing in the playoffs, and the Arab League is still training alone in Los Angeles. It is expected to return to China in July. Regarding the pre-match training for the Olympics, Angzi has learned a little bit. In this Olympics, the head coach of the Chinese national team is Bob Denghuade. According to the news from Zhang Mingji, Angzi has always been on Bob Denghuade's roster, just because the playoffs are more important. The Basketball Association has not sent a letter to Angie. The Spurs flew to Oklahoma City on the morning of May 31st. After arriving in Oklahoma City, the Spurs drove to the hotel. But at the door of the hotel, another interesting incident happened. "I reject this hotel." Tony Parker looked very serious, while Gregvich was smiling there. Angie felt a little strange. He raised his head and glanced at the name of the hotel, Skaven Hilton Hotel. Angie curled his lips. Why did the Hilton Hotel refuse? This is one of the best hotels in America. The previous quarrel remained the same, but the Spurs had already booked this hotel. No matter how much protest, it was useless. The players moved in. Several league veterans walked in this hotel. They walked a little bit scared. Angie was speechless. Among everyone, it seemed that he and Kawhi Leonard were calm and normal, and even Tim Duncan showed a slight sadness. The teammates stepped forward one by one and got their room keys, and then Angie heard Gary Neal say, "Wow, it's dangerous, it's not the 10th floor." 10th floor? So what? Angie didn't realize it until now, but he didn't have time to think. He walked forward and got his room key. The number on the key was 1012, on the 10th floor? An 11's expression changed, and several veterans gathered and began to gloat. "Wow, and is the 10th floor? It's miserable, and you're going to sleep all night and all night." Angie was also frightened by these unscrupulous people at this time, and weakly asked, "What happened to the 10th floor?" "Don't you know?" Dun Blair, the most enthusiastic, began to popularize Angie. "This hotel has died. On the 10th floor, a maid and her and the boss's children died. Many people say that there is a problem with this hotel. Sometimes there are children crying at night and sometimes women screaming." Dun Blair became more and more terrible as Dun Blair said, and an 11 hid in fright. Gregvich hurriedly came to comfort Angie and drove Dun Blair away. "And, don't worry, you should be an atheist, don't be scared by them, there is no ghost in this hotel." Vicky patted Angie on the shoulder, just about to leave, hesitated and turned to look at Angie. "Well, if you really feel unable to sleep, I will allow you to live elsewhere, but you have to come back on time tomorrow morning." Angie feels crippled more and more. "Nima, didn't you say that there must be no ghosts? What do you mean by saying this later? Scary." An 11 roared in his own heart, but he had nothing to do. The matter was a foregone conclusion and he could only accept it. Moreover, an 11 was indeed an atheist. He didn't believe that there would be ghosts in this hotel. But this is always a little flustered. To be continued. To find this site, please search for or enter the URL.